My first question is to the first speaker, Heider. No? I mean, you made a good case why Öcalan is so central to the politics of PKK and Kurdish nation, but can you also make a case why not? I mean, why Kurdish nation can produce strategic vision, why without Öcalan can it reproduce peace readiness, you know, a stateless society, an imagination of stateless society without Öcalan? Can you make a case for that? I mean, centralizing Öcalan, does it lead to the freedom of Öcalan? I doubt it. If you centralize Öcalan more, you might get the opposite impact. Why lose such an actor that is already at the hand and release him? The other question is to Nuray Mert. You talk about no potentiality of AKP from the beginning in regard to Kurds. Again, the question is again, where is the possibility then? I mean, what is your potentiality? Where is it? You know, is there any chance of that turns around somehow? I don't know. CHP comes together with whatever, you know. What's your solution then, if that's not the solution?
I didn't say that there's no solution.
No, you didn't say.
I already.
You didn't say, but you didn't say your solution.
I already said that negotiations and recognition of the fact.
With AKP? But you are saying that AKP cannot negotiate any solution at the same time because their understanding of Kurdish issues is limited.
Still.
And
okay, well let's okay, if you want to answer that now, Nuray, do you want to answer that now or do you want to take that later?
No, later.
Yeah, later. Okay. Next one is over here, Mehmet. Oh, up in the corner then. Yeah.
I have the mic.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the presentations. I am going to use the British policy of asking questions. I am going to use Professor Moench's realism against Reimar and Meral and their political points against Professor Moench. So my question to Meral and Reimar is, from what I understood, you tend to reduce the whole problem to a reorganization of political and institutions in Kurdistan, i.e. to making them more democratic. To me, that sounds basically a liberal project, unless you have also a project and vision of how economy and social relations in that part of the world is reorganized. In other words, the problem of oppression of women or problem of oppression of ethnicity is not simply a matter of lack of existing political organizations. It is also a reflection of how the whole social structure is organized. So if you want to change that social structure as a whole, I wonder whether you think that would be feasible, because then you would have the old problem of socialism within one country, right? I see Mark is looking at me. So my question for Professor Moench is, I understand your kind of legal interest in making very nice, concrete, very clear-cut kind of demands. But to my mind, these demands have been made very clear and understandable. I mean, you start from Kurdish language being allowed in all school and at all levels, recognition of regional autonomy, federalism in certain parts of Kurdistan has been demanded. So what more you want in terms of clarity in the beginning? So then you have a process of negotiation and you hammer out the details. So I'm not sure what exactly your problem with the current forms of demanding the rights is really from the Kurdish side.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll take... Yes? The woman here with the microphone, please.
Thank you for your presentations. I just have one question for Ms. Mert and one for Professor Ronald. With regard to the first presenter, I just want to, you talked about, with regards to the Kurdish opening, about the failure. So I'm just wondering, can we easily talk about the failure or a case, a process not completed yet, which means in progress, if of course we belong to this school of thought that believes that the Kurdish issue in Turkey is in the long or short run, and its solution is unavoidable. And for Professor Ronald, given the heterogeneous Turkish society, which is the governing model that you think that should be applied in the case of the Kurdish issue in Turkey, and why? Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, down here.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. My question is to Professor Ronald. He gave us the impression that Turkey becomes really modern and very democratic country, but when you look at the statistics to European Court of Human Rights, we can see that Turkey becomes one of the worst countries in the world, specifically with regard to journalists and right of life and right to torture. And okay, I come from the law background as well. I know that the lawyer, we are asking very concrete definition, but in the law, we know that there is no a lot of definition. Like since 1948, there is no definition of minority, there is no definition of terrorism. And as the Dr. Campbell Martin say, like, what would be your approach? Like when you look at all those statistics and cases, how do you define Turkey as a new and modern country despite all these statistics? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm taking one man, one woman at the moment. So the next woman here.
Well, my question is actually to Meral, as a Kurdish woman. Sorry, yes, thanks. As a Kurdish woman from northern Kurdistan, I'm feminist, a Kurdish feminist as well. I'm wondering, what do you think, or in what ways this Kurdish autonomy will promise to Kurdish women? This is question, but a little comment. Well, as we all know, Kurdish women physically and in the Kurdish movement very strongly. And they are very in the key issue as well, in key position. But this is one side of Kurdish women question, issue. On the other hand, we have our own problem, our own question, our own way to work out on that. And if you look at in Turkey context and other, the same actually, we have Kurdish women face two basic headlines. We are, that's why it could be Kurdish women policy, anti-sexist and anti-racist feminism. So it exists already in the world. So, for example, black women did very well, theoretically, how they can cope with both issues and with their own society, fight against patriarchy, and at the same time we are Kurds, regardless of our gender. So we face racism as well. So in that context, Kurdish feminism, and how can they promise us what is our demand can happen there? We are physically already there, but it's not enough, I mean. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ghazi.
I think my question is one of the most concrete questions to Professor Moench, Ronald Moench. What can be more concrete than these 68 days of action of civil disobedience? 3 concrete questions. Were they concrete demands or not? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's just one second. We're just building up some questions. I'd just like to get through these questions first. So if you'd like to answer the questions that have been given to you, and then we'll have another
It will be short
tranche.
Short questions, the short answers. First of all, for the friend who asked about my potentiality or my solution for thing. I mean, I can't promise you. Naturally, I can't promise you. I mean, my solution. I'm not that confident about solving age-old question by my suggestions. But I already, first of all, when I mentioned of limited understanding of Kurdish question or politics or all that democracy of the conservative circles in general or the ruling party and the prime minister, I just wanted to remind you the general framework in Turkey rather than suggesting that there is no hope, well, we are stuck with this, dull people who doesn't understand the extent of the, importance of the problem and so on. And my suggestion or potential, rather than suggestion, potentiality lies along the lines with the beginning of negotiations with the legitimate political actors of the Kurdish politics. Of course, on one side there will be Erdogan and his party, the government, and other Turkish parties, political parties. But on the other side, unlike the professor, I don't think that there is no representative of the Kurdish cause. There are three different sets of actors. One is the BDP as democratic political party, which operates in parliament within the limits of the existing democratic system. And the other one is the actors who are organizing the armed struggle. Those are not legitimate or legal. They are legitimate in the eyes of Kurdish people. That's why we call them actors, but they are illegal actors in the eyes of Turkish state, naturally, and the imprisoned leader of the movement, namely Öcalan. There are these two different layers of representations, and there should be a quick start or real understanding of the process of negotiations with these actors to find some sort of settlement for a Kurdish political status. So unless we come to this point, I don't see any hope. But if there is a sign of, and there will be inevitably, it will start in this way, because today the end of hunger strikes is a very good example. First, government didn't want to negotiate and chose to turn blind eye, chose to underestimate the whole thing. And still so, unfortunately, because as far as I know, in Turkey, there is no media coverage of what happened. But still, no government can resist such movements of resistances or movements of freedoms. So at the end of the day, they come to the stage of engaging in some sort of negotiation process.
If I can just make a little point there, that the point of the hunger strike was to try and break that isolation and to open a communications line with Öcalan. In that regard, it has been successful.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to continue?
No. Will we get more questions? Because
I think the professor deserves a right of defence actually first.
No, not that. No.
He's been accused of many things, and you need your right of reply.
I feel totally confirmed. Today we heard about the importance of perception. I begin with your question. It is not important what is; it's important what we see. And the media in the West, this was the only thing I told you. See a positive image of Turkey. Ugly Turkey has turned to a nice Turkey. And it was very important to hear that the reality within Turkey is already shifting, but it takes years and years to build up a new image. So I know about the figures of journalists sitting in Turkish prisons. What is perhaps the most important thing, apart from language and all these things, Kurdistan is, after nearly 100 years of Turkish responsibility for the whole country concerning economy, is a neglected region. The difference in between the west of Turkey and the east of Turkey, Kurdistan, is tremendous. So I would be very critical to Turkey, but I only wanted to tell that the image of Turkey has changed. And it was very interesting that also the image of this Islamistic movement of Erdogan, in the beginning everybody was in the West on the side of the old system, which was really totally finished. But after 2 years he succeeded in winning a very broad support. So that was where my only insights into Turkey. And if we have, speaking about Turkey as a partner in that business, we have to see Turkey as it is, and it is a very self-confident, successful country. I agree totally, in contradiction to she with me, what she said about Turkey. There's a shift of an authoritarian system from one ideology to the other. But in reality, it is an authoritarian system. But we, in the West, are following the slogans, democracy, plurality. It is as much nonsense now as before. But it is that's for what your question. So, if I see that, I would like to address the lady in the middle. Which government which model do you propose for Turkey? And it's also the question, schools. Everything has been said, but in reality it counts. Which schools, in which city, in which regions? Turkey is a very much differentiated country. So you have to define, as all federal systems have done, where begins the federal system, where are the borders, where is a mixed population, what have we to do here and there. In Germany there is a saying, der Teufel liegt im Detail. The evil one, he loves the details. The slogan is not much worth. The slogans are okay, but then you have to do that small work. And my appeal is, we have now an exiled population of about 1 million Kurds in the Western countries. They can do whatever they do. Thousands of lawyers among them. If you talk to these people, you could do that. That's the only response I get. Not, we have to do that. You can do that. But how can a German lawyer produce an image of a future federalized Turkey? It's up to the people to do that. And if the Turkish government is not willing to concede this city and that city, and it is not willing, then it is up to the Kurds to do that. It is feasible. It is not so difficult. There will be international advice, but there are so many Kurds living worldwide with excellent knowledge in legal things. They could do that relatively quickly, but it is not their primary focus. So it stayed with the slogans, and we are all a little bit drunken by these nice slogans, and they are also changed one after the other. And I had a meeting, a very nice meeting with 3 members of parliament, central parliament in Germany. And finally they asked me, now give us a book in our hand which we can really understand which articles of the Turkish constitution shall be changed and what is the alternative text. I said, I can give you 12 books, but not one text. And they said, please, we agree to meet again 1 year later for a cup of coffee. The same what Kurdish friends tell me. They come, they organize a lot of work for all Kurds living in Germany. They get a cup of tea or coffee, very polite, and their partner looks at the watch. There is always the same image. Slogans, buzzwords, but not a concrete thing which he can check with another partner in the parliament, let me say a pro-Turkish partner. They know themselves, all of them. And I think what I propose is so simple, simplistic. It is so easygoing, but it is not the big world. And the big world, I agree, is much more interesting than this shabby working about 1, 2, 3 articles and a bordery of that. But addressing to the gentleman over there, naturally we know there have to be Kurdish schools? Who will pay the schools? Who will train the teachers? What will we with the Turkish children in that region? Who organizes all that? The mayors have no money. They need an article in the constitution. This Kurdistan region gets a percentage of the national income by direct or indirect taxes. There is no way. It must not be charity. And Turkey is following a policy of charity. We do it for you. And then we can meet 10 years later, perhaps more charity. But we need no bargaining about the money. We need the money now and today. And then the Kurds will show what they can do. And they will form a very modern, good entity. If you call it state or federal region or whatsoever, it doesn't matter. But we have to know what is being done, what has to be done, what is financed, who finances, who bears the responsibility. And why I am so much fond of federalism, it is ridiculous that a governor in Turkey says, now I should learn Kurdish. He should be Kurd as long as he administers a Kurdish region. He should belong to these people. They could look at his fingers. They could cut his fingers if he is doing not well. But he has his legitimation from far away. And that is what is charity. It is fishing for compliments. I am breaking the silence of Kurdish high-ranking officers. I want to learn some Kurdish. That's ridiculous. There are so many good Kurds who do the work. No chance. It must be a Turk, depending on the ministry in Ankara, and as a first man in place, he says, yeah, I also go to a Kurdish night dance. Okay, but that is not Kurdistan. It must be more.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to take Meral, just 1 second. I just want, because I know there's Bayram up there who the Professor Moench was talking about how the central government starve funds to local councils in Kurdistan. And if somebody could just, he's visiting here at the moment, if Hikmet could translate, if he could talk a little bit about how funds were starved in the council that he was part of the administration for, and the problems of yeah, Hikmet, can you translate?
Tamam. Slava hürmet. Hevan çara seriye perspektiva Kurd gorimin gredai Şaristaniye Avrupa'ya ji. Ana doza keceke de liser navi terörü CMA'ye da darzandına min heye. Hevali Muhammed zindan edanı jibo me 6 sal ceza tekhwastin. Suceme çiye? Suceme ev pırtuk ev ji penuse. Suceme ev herdun. Lebeli daxwazam eve ku Şaristani Avrupa'yı ve kijan demi Kurda listeye terörde derine Raşembiri Avrupa'yı ve çıbkın ve çareseri da. Spas tıkım juvara.
Okay, he said, hello everyone. He said, I would like to suggest the European civilizations to look at and to consider our problems, to solve, to look at for the solution for this problem. On 13th of this month, we will have a court presence of the KGK. What is our problem? What are they going to sentence us? Just for the problem of having a pen and a notebook. We apply, we suggest, we are asking for the support of the European civilization to get support, to support us for this.
I happen
thank you.
I happen to know that Bayram is in court for posters that used the Kurdish letters.
And then he also mentioned that we are going to be sentenced 6 years for nothing.
So when you hear of AKP's so-called reforms in terms of Kurdish language, actually on the ground, people are still being charged for using Kurdish letters. Extraordinary. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry, Meral. Sorry, yes. I'm so sorry.
Just before answering shortly the questions, Ronald, you said governors should know Kurdish or better be Kurds in Kurdistan. I think there shouldn't be any governors in Kurdistan or in any other part of Turkey, because I think there's no difference to colonial ministers. Now to the questions, I think maybe the speech was understood a bit like flower power in Kurdistan or everything lom, very positive it was. I think my task was not to explain how democratic autonomy works or how women participate or should participate concretely in this process. It was just about showing the role they play or should play, and because of this I try to underline it. So there are different dimensions of democratic autonomy. Democratic autonomy has one intern, is, for example, the name of one intern organization and one external organization. On the one side, it regulates, for example, the relations between the Kurds in North Kurdistan and the Turkish government, for example, as political organization, okay? But if you look at it as an internal structure or social structure, it's a different organization. So you can use the name democratic autonomy to name different dimensions of the self-organization of the Kurdish people. One is an external, one is an internal. And my speech was about the internal, about democratic autonomy as an instrument or a goal for the transformation of society. The speech was about this and what kind of women play, what kind of role women play there. And I just tried to show that they play a key role. That my speech was about this. So. And about what democratic autonomy promised to women, I think we should also look what women promise to democratic autonomy. They promise autonomy to be democratic. I think, it's we have a history of 30 years of women's liberation struggle in Kurdistan, and maybe for me, it's the most impressive, fascinating women's organization that exists in the world. You don't have such a, for example, women's army in any other part of the world. You don't have it. You don't have such a well-organized women's organization. That does not mean that everything works very perfectly and that we just reached social freedom or that we just liberated women and so on, because this is a very, very long process. And now we are at a stage where democratic autonomy as tool for a social transformation could be one stage in this long process. And I think there should be an agreement between women and democratic autonomy, because they should promise things to each other. Democratic autonomy would promise women in Kurdistan to get all the things back she lost together with civilization, to build it up, because nobody will give it to you as a gift. They are not objects inside this process. They are the main subjects. And they maybe would promise to give its democratic or free character, because otherwise you could have autonomy. You can establish such structures, but how equal, how democratic, how free would they be without women? But it's not just the case about participate as women. It's about transforming your own character to overcoming the patriarchal system and its mind and so on. So it's also a struggle women have inside themselves with their own sex, class struggle also inside the women's movement, and then with the other parts of the society. And this is happening since 30 years and will go on. And now this is another stage, and we don't know what will come after this stage. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
I want to answer shortly to 3 points. The first one being the question whether I could also make the case for a solution without Öcalan. I probably could, but this is not some kind of intellectual game, whether I can also find arguments for something else. Gülten Kışanak in her speech yesterday made very clear that if millions of people say my representative in these negotiations is Öcalan, then the other side has to respect this, full stop. There can be no discussion about this. My point in my presentation is to explain why this person has this role, because he has earned it through strategical thinking and organizing. Everything that we see today was not there 30 years ago. It is there because of the efforts of Öcalan and his comrades. This explains why he has such a role, why the Kurdish people see in that way. And I don't think it's very useful, to patronize the Kurds and say, but this should be somehow different. I mean, even if I find arguments for that wouldn't really change it. And my other point was to say, yes, this man is capable. He has done a good job on this. He has done a good job in the negotiations, as far as we can see. The example that I very shortly touched only about these 3 documents, they were very concrete points. There were 3 one-page documents that Öcalan presented with very concrete points, and with these documents they discussed about issues as sensitive and extremely important as the demilitarization of the conflict and the ending of the armed struggle and the to lay down the arms. So I think yes, it's a very good idea if this person is present in the negotiations. He's not doing this alone. He's done this in close cooperation with the rest of the movement. There was a traffic of information between Kandil and Imralı through the MIT. So this is how these things work. The second point is on the autonomy. This wasn't a question towards me, but I feel the need to comment on this. The term democratic autonomy itself is meant as an alternative or as the contrary to a territorial autonomy. The issue is not to define 5 or 8 or 10 provinces of Turkey to say, oh, this is now Kurdistan, this gets self-rule, and nobody can, this has no relationship with Ankara anymore. The term democratic autonomy means that this kind of grassroots organization that me and Meral also have tried to explain or define or touch on a little bit, to establish this as a guiding principle for social organization. So that means if there is the need for a Greek or Armenian primary school somewhere in Istanbul to have education in the mother language, that they also should have the right. And when they're able to organize for this, that this should be supported and not being prohibited. That's the whole point of it. And it's not about defining some border and granting some self-rule in this thing. This may be, of course, the reorganization of the structure of Turkey may be part of a future constitution. Probably is a good idea to do such a thing, like to do away with the governors or something. But this is not what this term means. So this is not, the primary aim of this concept. The third point is the question whether we didn't talk a lot about the reorganization of political institutions and too little about the political economy. I'm sure, or I know, that the movement is discussing economy, that they have concepts on that. That was not really central to my talk. One of them in relation to this self-determination of communities and of decentralization and communalization one central part of this is the concept of communal ownership, to run businesses community-owned instead of only, either state-owned or privately owned companies. People are working on this, on a kind of model for this, on models for production and consummation cooperatives as well. So these things are happening, but many of the issues, the immediate issues at hand, the political issues that all speakers touched on, are not directly linked to the political economy. There are things that can be solved through a constitutional change, for instance. And especially, I think, many issues that the women's movement raises and that are concerning the whole society in Kurdistan are not related to this at all. I mean, the fact that there is a capitalist or semi-feudal mode of production is not really directly causal for domestic violence, for instance, or for the way that marriages are arranged, or how women are murdered due to some kind of honor concepts. So this is there may be some link, but this is very far-fetched. So there are a lot of political issues at hand that the movement is dealing with, without tying everything to economical concepts. Doesn't mean one shouldn't have one, and that this is not discussed, but I think it should be put into the right balance.
Thanks, Reimar. Listen, we have a little bit of time, so let's use it. I have got Ibo at the back first. Can I see some women's hands, because we're having a whole swathe of men at the moment? Any women who want to?
Thank you.
1 second. Any women?
Okay. Well.
Okay.
Okay, I would be grateful if the Kurds can stay, because what I'm going to say is going to be basically for the Kurds to look into the future and to see actually what we can do for ourselves, rather than expecting some European states or someone else to do it for us. And anyway, my first actually is a comment, but within itself has a question. It's about a federal state. When you give an example of Germany made of a federal state, let's look at it. That federal states were German, with socially, culturally, economically, politically were German. The federal states you are proposing for the east of Turkey, and it's going to be a Kurdish federal state. For a Turkey to let a Kurdish federal state to happen, they need to accept first the first Kurds, which is they have not entirely done it yet. With another attention is to your constitution. And now we have 36 pro-Kurdish MPs right in the middle of the parliament. They are demanding the right written constitution, and the Turkish parliament is reluctant to listen to it. What else the Kurds can do within this? However, thirdly is this: rather than asking for Turkish government to bring us like Kurdish education, I think what we need to do all over the Kurdistan, we need to disobey. We need to disobey to send our kids to the Turkish schools, to the Turkish or to the Arabic schools, to the Persian schools. And we need to start to look into how we can fight within this, rather than looking, because this is what we are searching, isn't it? Now we are looking within Turkey, within Iraq, within Iran. Kurds are begging for their rights from this country. No, we need to fight for it. We need to disobey. We need to go conquer the schools, primary schools, high schools, units, everything. And also we've got infrastructure for this. The infrastructure it's our culture. It's our language. It's our society. And this is, while we debate on this, we are getting isolated. And every second is working against us. We are losing one Kurdish word if you don't act to do something. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ibo. Hikmet over here in the blue. Yep, and then you know.
Is it?
Oh, okay.
Me?
Yeah, as you've got the mic, go on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A couple of comments. One is that in Syria, they have taken the right to have Kurdish schools. And I don't know whether you feel in Turkey that is possible at this moment or if that's something you can work towards. But under very difficult circumstances, obviously, it has happened there. But I think that's indicative of what I see as the difficulty for women, which is that women are often expected to get some kind of respect within a system that has been already set up by other people. And I think if Kurds are expecting to get respect from a system that's already been set up by other people, it's a very difficult situation. And it's about changing the rules, both for women within the Kurdish society, but also, as I think people have said today, within the societies that people are living in. So I guess the question is, how do you think that's going to happen? But that's a massive...
Just while the mic's here, just the gentleman's been waiting a long time down here. Just let's try and keep our comments short now. We can get as many as possible in.
Thank you very much. Anyway, Zana Kurdistani. I would like to ask Professor, forget his name.
Moench.
Yeah.
Moench.
Yeah. Sorry. It's confused me. What is alliance or relationship between German or United Kingdom to Turkish. Unfortunately, I'm coming to fly to Europe and British to work for to make Kurdish lobbying in this Western. Unfortunately, when I get
sorry, can people please not leave? The conference organisers just want to make a speech at the end. So if everybody can please stay and just until the end. We're nearly at the end. We've got 10 minutes left.
When I come to German, when I come to German, also the German reject me. They didn't let me to work. And even here, last 5 months, I published one article in Barat University. After that, the MI6, I don't know, secret agent, British secret agent, they come in my house in Huddersfield. They asking, they say, that's last notification. We will give it to you, and you can't. We got somebody complained to you. 13 people. One of them, the Turkish government, Turkish embassy. They say you are supporting PKK. And unfortunately, I'm leader of Kurdistan Truth Party. I've got different ideology. Anyway, they say just for my article, I published it in newspaper. I'm coming to supporting for Kurdish people to get free. But I have to start to get back to my country to make a revolution, remove all Turkish, all Arabian, all Persian in my area.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hikmet up at the top there. Hikmet in the blue. Over here, Jan. Hikmet in the blue at the back. I'm so sorry. You'll be after Hikmet then. And then you'll be next. And then
thank you.
But if you try to keep them short, and we'll get them in.
My name is Hikmet Tabak. I'm a broadcaster.
Yeah.
Professor Moench, I mean, thank you for everyone's contribution, but I think obviously your thoughts have been very provocative, very thought-provocative, which I see as actually a manifestation of European thoughts. And also I have been very disappointed with the Kurdish youth here, who are students and academics, who so far have not understood what actually the Kurdish movement wants or what the Kurds want. No one responded to that. And if they have not done, they should have focused on that, maybe done PhDs on to find out what the Kurdish movement wants. It's not about what Kurdish movement wants. It's about what they can get, how they can get what they want. Reimar mentioned of the shift in the strategy until 1993. Actually, by that time, it was very clear what they wanted. It was independent, free Kurdistan. But the whole world changed. The world in the Turkey changed, in Iran changed, Soviets changed, the allies in Europe changed, the entire world changed, and the Kurds just had to be more realistic, ask what they can get, and try to get what they can get. After 30 years of war, causing the lives of 50,000 people, as 17,500 people were executed extrajudicially, 3.5 million people were displaced from their villages. 3,000 villages were burned in front of the Europeans. And Europeans even were not interested to see what the Kurds wanted. Of course they knew that what was going on. They just didn't want to hear because it's against their interests. And realistically, they act according to their interests. It is absolutely not about to find out what the Kurds want. The Kurdish politicians, it's not a movement of students. The Kurdish politicians are 55, average age probably 55 or 60. And they are not more than the students. The whole entire Kurdish society is involved, from the professors like yourselves, from the teachers, from the academics, from everyone. Everyone knows what the Kurds want, but they try to find how they can get. As whole the world close their ears to them, close their eyes to them, close their medias, close their parliaments to the Kurds just in that Middle East, in those mountains, do you think they only can trust those mountains? No, the Kurds have become survivors. In 30 years, they have, in spite of all this ignorance, which is called ignored war, and the Kurds still have managed to survive. If they have so far, that's simply because they have become good politicians. They are not any revolutionary students, idealistic students. They have been very good politicians, and they so far, in spite of the sophisticated Assad regime, Saddam regime, the crooked Islamist regimes, against all of them, they have managed to survive. And they try to produce the politics according to their conditions and their power. And referring to what you said about Germans, saying that the evil is interested in the detail, actually Tolstoy very much refers to what Germans' strategy is about. As he mentions, refers to the quote from the Russian general who defeated Bonaparte, Napoleon, says that, don't become such a German, splitting the hair. So it's not about splitting the hair or the details. It's about actually how they can get, and they try very hard to get it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the gentleman just in front of you there.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much all for your presentations, and I really learned quite a lot from each of your presentations, so thank you for that. The questions or comments I'm going to make are based on a sort of normative aim that I always have when I intervene in political debate. And the normative aim is that here for me is that the Kurdish freedom movement must be celebrated for what it has achieved so far, but also as a person, I would like the achievements of this movement to benefit the millions of the Kurds who are not privileged enough to be here among us and who are not able to attend conferences like this. And therefore, the consequences of any political settlement or any achievements of a political movement must be judged historically must be judged by the extent to which they serve the people that they pretend they are representing, and not how they become a new ruling or political elite. I'm not suggesting that this is going to happen with the Kurdish movement, but there are issues that need to be addressed, and I think the presenters did not address this. Maybe they didn't have that in mind when they come here, but I would like to ask questions to each if they can address that. For example, in Heider's case, I appreciate your presentation of Öcalan's contribution, and I happen to know him when we were both at the university. So I know him. I know him personally to some extent, at least for a few years, and I know about his contribution. But I would like to see what is the balance here. The Kurdish political movement faded away in your presentation when you presented Öcalan's contributions, which I don't deny. But where is the Kurdish movement? So we need to draw that balance, I think, and that's not maybe unjustified to ask, even though I wasn't expecting it. It can be discussed here.
Okay.
For Meral, I appreciate your contribution a lot, and I learned a lot. However, I become suspicious when some term becomes like a preoccupation, repeated again and again, like this democratic autonomy, and it's not used by you only, by everybody. But now look at the experience we have in other countries when you have democratic or some sort of autonomy. Autonomy in many countries is associated with corruption. Autonomy in many countries is associated with higher than necessary tax levels. Autonomy is associated with many other problems. And if you don't address this in the case of Kurdistan, Kurdish movement, if you don't address that in our discussions, then we're likely to repeat the same mistakes. And we are likely to let down the millions of people that we think will benefit from democratic autonomy. So we need to address that issue. With respect to Nuray, I think I asked a similar question before. Yes, there was a tendency in Turkey to misread or misunderstand the capacity, the extent to which the AKP elite can democratize Turkey. Now, do you think there is a similar mistake likely to be committed, at least by some Kurds in Turkey? And that's what I'm really very, very scared about. The final question to Professor Moench, I feel sympathetic, to be honest with you, to your practical, pragmatic, legal sort of clarity with respect to the demand, and it's not difficult to come up with. And I don't see why the resistance is in some of the quarters of the audience to that. But I think the problem or the issue that you have you did not pay attention to or take it simply a bit lightly is that the Western media and Western governments disregard and, to be honest with you, hostility towards the Kurdish problem is not based on the lack of clearly defined legal rules at all. There is a collusion between the governments, big business, and the media in Western Europe and in the United States. And this collusion means that as long as the business flows with Turkey goes okay, as long as the arms deals go okay, then we will keep shut. And that's my argument. What do you think about that? Thank you.
Thank you. Just what, gentlemen? Yeah, gentlemen, you ready? Yeah, if you can just try, please, to keep your comments short now. And we're nearly there. Thank you, everybody, for their patience.
Mark, when my time is coming short, I want to say something important for our people to understand what's happening back home.
Go ahead. Karimke.
Karimke's post. First of all, yesterday we talked about, a little bit about the Kurdish map. Today, some information about the Kurdish population. So just I will tell you something. My dad was telling me, he's old man, he's not a politician, but his knowledge is more than a lot of people here. Doesn't matter, with respect to everybody. He was telling me, son, we are not less than the Arab people in Syria. What does it mean? When the Syrian revolution started, I met hundreds of Arab opposition, and a lot of my friends know is here. Everybody was telling me exactly, Sherko, we are original Kurdish. We are original Kurdish. For a second, I said, guys, like it's enough. All of you Kurdish. So the Syrian people, 50% at least, is Kurdish in Syria. So we think 10, 15, 20. It should be this number important to us. In Turkey, I visited Turkey. I went to Istanbul. My first language was in Istanbul. It was Kurdish language. So I didn't meet any Turkish in Istanbul. Can you believe it? I'm serious, really. I didn't meet anybody, honestly. Third, the most important also to my dear friend, my professor friend from Germany. I respect this talk. He got a lot of benefit from Turkey. He can see the beautiful picture of Turkey, but for us, we can see the ugly face of Turkey, because we didn't achieve anything from them. This is the most important. Population of the Kurds, we're talking about minority. We are not minority in the Middle East. We are majority. Everybody must understand it, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Gentleman over here with the glasses.
I have short question.
Very short, yep. While it's there on the microphone, yep.
Yeah. Question to Mr. Reimar. In your speech, you mentioned that the negotiation in Oslo has ended up with unproven by Mr. Prime Minister. Does it mean that all this negotiation was waste of time, and why it hasn't been proven? Second question to Ms. Nuray. Today I heard from the news that President of Iraq was telling the Prime Minister that the solution of Kurds in Turkey will be solved by making the Kurdish language as official language and by taking the prevention of isolation of Mr. Öcalan or giving freedom. And then the answer by Prime Minister saying that, well, this cannot be done because the public opinion doesn't accept. Of course, the public opinion in Turkey. So this is my question.
Okay, the gentleman in front of you with pigtail.
I have a question.
Sorry, what was the question?
Sorry, just
the Turkish public.
They are talking to each other, and then what?
Yeah, Turkish public opinion doesn't accept that to give freedom to Öcalan, and the question why the public opinion doesn't accept these demands.
Okay.
Are they against the Turkish Kurdish demands? And
to get a solution, we need empathy from Turkish general public, and is that a realistic achievement? Yep.
This question is to Mr. Heider. It's about the political shift of PKK, and it kind of seemed clear and nice and all, but it kind of seemed post-politically sterile. And I was kind of curious how is it kind of similar to Italian autonomism, and how is it influenced by Negri? Bir soru da Nuray Hanım'a olacak. The pseudo-characters pumped and ballooned by the Turkish bourgeois media, such as Campbell, how do they affect the kind of mindset of the current Kurdish movement? That was my question.
Okay. Very.
Himself or people like him? Who is like him, I wonder?
Ya,
A little.
Kemal Burkay ve bir kısım Türkçüler ve benzerleri diye şey yaptım.
Controversial question there. Okay, over to microphone over here, please. Sorry, this way. Okay, we're beginning to wrap up now. Thank you very much for your patience. Berivan, the conference organizer, is going to give a closing speech in about 5 minutes, yeah? Okay.
My question and small comment is about the negotiations that started good and failed in a maybe in a disastrous way with Kurds and the Turkish government. Is not something that happens the first time in history of Turkey since Turkey was founded. So I ask myself sometimes whether the mentality of negotiation of the Turkish state with the Kurds has really something to do with the Kurds, or whether they have an issue with negotiations in general. And here I would like to link up to the accession period to European Union, and the last report that the European Union on the assessment of Turkey's developmental and approach to the European Union has put forward. And to Professor Moench, I would like to address this question, because this report shows just failures after failures for the Turkish government, and it criticizes the points of Turkey which, during the transition time from the more militaristic Kemalist regime towards a democratic Turkey, there was a space created in people's minds of self-expression and so on. But as soon as they got the power, with full steam, they tried to reverse these conditions to a civil dictatorship similar, with very controlled elections, and so on and so on. And as you probably also know from Germany, before the totalitarian Nazi regime came to power, they were hindering all the other oppositions to have their protests, to have their discussions, by crashing them violently and then just giving space for the ideas expressions just in their conferences. That's what the AKP also is doing in Turkey in terms of freedom. They are just spreading pepper gas and all that violence, civil violence, controlled by the police against all the civil movements. And then they create a space where they express their own ideas and declare them as visions. And Europe has started now with this report to decline this attitude of the Turkish government. So my question to you is, what would be the next step of Europe, which declares itself as a unity not just of economic terms, but also of terms of values? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd just like to give the panel one question. I did ask for questions from our online community, and one of the questions from hashtag Twitter Kurds is, does the borderless nature of the internet mean that states like Turkey have less control over the media and psychological warfare? So that's one question from our Twitter Kurds online community, if somebody could answer that on the panel. Anybody? Let's take that.
Answering this or answering questions directly?
Yeah, we can answer the questions now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, actually, considering the depth of questions, we need another session to answer all. And actually, I was expecting something on Syria because I couldn't find time to discuss the matter with Syria and what happens and how it affects Turkey's Kurdish policy. But since nobody is interested, I'm not going into that. And concerning, you mean by President, you mean Barzani, don't you? Talabani. The talks with Barzani ile konuşmamış mıydı? I missed that. Sorry, I just read talks with Barzani, and I missed that since I was here. I didn't read papers. And yeah, well, anyway, it's not the important part of your question. The important part is why Turkish public opinion against Kurdish rights, or if they are against Kurdish rights. Yes. Mostly yes, sorry. But, it's a big delusion on behalf of many Kurdish and Turkish Democrats that, actually Kurds and Turks are, friends and brothers and sisters, and, it's all politicians, mistake or whatever, failure to achieve peaceful coexistence. This is not true. Kurds, most of the Turks, including, secular, conservative, or, enlightened, or less enlightened, if you like, most of them, they decline to recognize Kurdish rights, for instance, let alone political status, Kurdish rights such as, Kurdish language education, or some sort of self-rule, even in terms of, devolution, if you like, rather than federation or all that. Because Turks are very, very nationalistic people. You have to recognize this fact first. And they are not getting less and less nationalistic. And on the contrary, they are getting more and more nationalistic. As I said in the beginning of my speech, since Turkey is transformed from one sort of nationalism to another. So in each step, they refresh their nationalism, if you like, unfortunately. And of course, I'm not saying that it's hopeless, and it's getting worse and worse, and we can't convince any Turks or Turkish opinion in terms of Kurdish rights, but the situation is not that hopeful at the moment. That's what I'm saying. But on the other hand, of course, because many things are happening, and no matter what this or that government is trying to refresh in terms of nationalism, people even reluctantly, need to reconsider their perceptions and their opinions on Kurds. And the most influential thing on revising people's opinions on Kurds is, of course, Kurdish resistance movement, or despite the fact that they're being hidden from Turkish public opinion to a large extent, or being despised by media and by government, and there is a strong propaganda against those forms of struggle, and classification of those forms of struggle as terrorism, under the title of terrorism. Still, such things that they're forcing Turks to reconsider their ideas on Kurdish rights. But at this stage, when we are talking about political attitude, they are quite defensive. Most of the Turkey, in terms of public opinion, they're quite defensive and quite nationalistic, and they don't think that Kurds deserve more rights and freedoms than they already have. And as for another question, that if I think Kurds also did a mistake, was it the question? The Kurds also did a mistake of...
Did they do a mistake, or are they likely to do it again?
Well, I may not know. I don't know. I don't know if I can define it as a mistake or kind of misunderstanding of, let's put it mildly, and say that misunderstanding of the whole process, and failing to understand the limit of Erdogan's policies or the limit of democratic politics in Turkey. Yes, I think that's why I remind you that I had a debate with Kurds as well in 2000 on the eve of Kurdish happening, then in 2009. So at the time, I didn't think that they are making a mistake on giving a lot of credit to the government, but I just felt really hopeless that they are giving too much credit, and it's not going anywhere, and then the backlash will be even, or would be even worse, and this is what happened. So I don't wish that the story repeats itself, and but no, I think things are changing, and despite the fact that I still have criticism of my Kurdish friends of being sometimes too optimistic, and they accuse me of being pessimistic and discouraging them and all that. But no, things are changing, and there is no more similar trust on the present government or present governing party or prime minister. But still, among Turks, what strikes me most is Kurds' understanding of or overestimation of the concept of state, Turkish state. They often use this concept of state mind, or raison d'etat, or all these big concepts, as if there is this transcendental power, intellectual power lying there. So the Kurdish problem, I often heard about Kurdish problem would be solved along the lines of state mind, and this hidden transcendent power. So this is the biggest mistake, to assume that Turkish state is over powerful, or there is this kind of big brain against behind the state and all that, and rather than thinking along realistic terms and putting state and state by whatever into their proper place.
And the internet, and in terms of social media bypassing the psychological war of the Turkish state, do you think that's had any effect?
Me?
Nuray, as a journalist, do you think that it has had any effect, social media, in terms of challenging?
Still, I was thinking about Kurds relying more on the. What was the question? Sorry.
Over the last couple of years, Kurds have been more active online in terms of, especially on Twitter, and there's been a big, and especially during the Uludere massacre, when the Turkish media were completely silent about the massacre. There was a mass tweeting campaign, and we feel that we managed to break the silence or bypass Turkish media. Do you think there's anything in that? Do you think that social media is a good form
It
of?
played a role, as you mentioned, concerning Uludere incident,
Yeah.
but still, it's not enough. I mean, of course, the government or any state cannot do, by whatever they like, by banning, news or comments on certain subject. But social media plays a role, and it did play a role, or especially concerning Uludere incident. But still, the monopoly of media, or monopoly of this, communication tools, apart from social media, have predominant influence. That's why Uludere incident came up again only when Wall Street Journal mentioned of the issue, if you remember.
Yeah.
So, but still, of course, this is for the time being. This is the only way. It seems that this is the only way, to raise questions, or to try to tell the true story, or objective story, and it should be used, and it will inevitably it has an impact.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. At the end, yep. Professor Moench.
A lot of questions. One main question of everybody had been the comparison in between Turkey and Germany and France and England and so on. If you are working for a Kurdish constitution or for a Turkish constitution with autonomy or federal system for the Kurds, then you have to look into many, many different constitutions. And you can learn something from each constitution, even if the countries are not comparable. And you can learn from the Sami in Finland, who have now the cultural rights, though they have a totally different culture from the Swedish and the Finns emigrating into Finland. So that is a scientific approach. And a federal system can work even if the countries, if the parts of the countries speak totally different languages, as in the moment in Iraq. It's an autonomous, it's a federal system. It is not totally in consensus with all partners, but the Kurdish language is different from the Arabic language, and there is a dispute about the oil and about the water, but it is feasible. That is one question. So Germany, not as a positive example, but as an example of a country where we have had 1,000 years of federal experience, and where the new federalism has been a clear response against arbitrary positions of the state, torture of the state, slavery. That federalism had been an answer. Perhaps an interesting question. European Union and Germany and England and so on, nobody loves the Kurds or loves a future Kurdistan. They have interests. They are not in love. And they are not totally against. So the sympathy the official Germany and the media Germany had in the late 70s, until the early 80s, had been a result from ugly Turkey, more than a sympathy for the Kurds, as antipathy against the Turkish military government. So that has passed away. If you like it or not, Turkey has now a positive image. Only an image. I'm not talking about realities. It's an image. And if you you can't profit as a Kurd now from ugly Turkey. That is over. You could profit from ugly Saddam. The Kurds from Syria can profit from the ugly governing family. But that is not the own force and the own strength. So I would recommend to all Kurds to trust upon themselves and not upon images, changing images and changing sympathies. The next question. European Union is trying to find ways to postpone a formal Turkey membership in the European Union, which in reality they are afraid of, mostly by the sheer number of new citizens of the European Union. Turkey is a big state and would play role number 2 after Germany and has a flourishing economy. Nobody wants a new player in comparison to Netherlands and Belgium and all these small states, all the states like France and Italy and Spain with their own political and economic problems. So Europe will not be fond of anything else. They want to avert Turkey, to postpone. Nobody is saying the truth. We don't like you. Everybody says, yeah, you are welcome, but let us not open chapter 2 or chapter 4 or chapter 5. And Turkey plays the same card. No, the media present a good image of Turkey, but the politicians, they are not interested in images. They see what happens if Turkey is a formal member. The whole system of numbers of delegates and so on has to be changed. Nobody wants to lose any influence in the moment. That does not exclude that Turkey 10, 20 years later will be member by political reasons. So that is very important. Europe has interests and has power partition in between countries and delegates. And so it's not a question to judge objectively the value or the non-value of things. And the so-called European values, don't trust in them. If they don't correspond to the interests official Europe has, the values are not interesting. Only one small story. After the new government came in Germany to power, the Green and Red government in 1989, the new foreign minister, Mr. Fischer, a Green, was invited to Turkey. And Turkey wanted to, and their program was the right of voting for all Turks, immigrants Turks, which they did later, was invited to Turkey. 3 days before he arrived in Istanbul, a Kurdish emigrant has been arrested in Romania who had found a political asylum in Germany. That was an absolute blow into the face of the foreign minister. But due to the influence of the Turkish organizations in Germany for the elections, Fischer went to Turkey and he radiated on the Bosporus. He has a small boat together with his colleague from Turkey. So there is no morale. There is no value. It is just practical politics. And since that time, he was morally down, but that is not the question the Germans are really posing themselves. So last answer for this gentleman with the independent state. The history of the Kurdish national movement began with the independent state. It was mentioned here. And that was a very easygoing subject. Everybody can understand what is a state. And in the moment, still the things were active. The first friends of the Kurds were working out the features of a new Oriental state, which could have a very positive image in comparison to Iraq and Syria, dictatorships, Turkey, ugly Turkey, and so on. And then this idea was dropped from one day to the other. It has never been worked out. And since that time, we have so many propositions with buzzwords, no concrete content, that no foreign help is being given to this very vague situation. And that is perhaps not necessary. But these demands, which my colleague here mentioned, are so abstract and so not understandable. Everybody understands what is a federal system. Everybody understands what is a state. But the rest is so difficult to be understood. These times are over, and the Kurdish movement has decided, and that's okay. It's not a question of Europeans or Americans or Russians to have better propositions for the Kurds. It is their decision, and it is done. And now we can only do what is inside the whole package of the Kurdish society. And my contribution is a very, very modest one and very relatively difficult one. What would mean federalization of Turkey? And that is also not really well seen. I understand that very well, and that's okay.
We just have... yeah, we literally... Okay, breaking news. You want 2 more speakers? Just 2? No. Okay, Meral, can you? Would you like? To? You don't want to wrap up? No. You want to wrap up, Reimar?
Yeah, I tried to.
Excuse me, it's not because I don't want to, but I got it. What Mr. said, but I mean, we can discuss on it for hours. Therefore.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. Okay, Reimar, if you could wrap up.
I haven't directly responded to Professor Moench, but since he's repeating his point, I have to say something. My presentation was not about the demands of the, in negotiations, about the, what they demand in the secret negotiations. I don't know. The BDP faction in parliament, half of them are lawyers. They are very well capable of formulating the demands. They have been named several times. It's not what we have been talking here about, but they are very capable of doing this. And it's not about the demands not being clear or not being formulated. I don't know why this is repeated. This point on the internet point, yes, of course, the internet helps in distributing news. It makes things like Twitter, Facebook makes it easier for people to start something, to write something, to get into it. But I think the backbone of breaking the censorship and the isolation and the disinformation on the Kurdish issue was done by Kurdish journalists who selflessly, sacrificed a lot of things, including their lives since the 90s or the late 80s, to form oppositional press in Turkey and abroad. I think that this is including television, of course, television journalists, but also press, newspaper journalists. I'm sorry if I gave the impression that somehow in my presentation the movement disappeared when I talked about the transitions or the transition of the movement, because I was trying to talk about the theoretical inputs that later had an impact on this transition. However, for that I'm still waiting for an alternative theory. I mean, somebody who says no, I think Cemil Bayik was more influent, or the Mardin branch of the BDP was more influent in shaping the movement's politics. Never heard of such a thesis. I would be very interested in hearing one. I think I made my point clear why I think Öcalan is the main driving force behind these changes that I explained. I don't think Oslo was a waste of time. I mean, if you, for a movement 20 years, say, I want negotiations, I want negotiated solutions, and then you get to the point where you can force the other side, after they have tried everything not to negotiate with you, like to create alternative leaders, try to isolate you, try to kill you, try to militarily suppress the movement. Then they finally come to the point where they have to negotiate with you. You have to do it. And in the negotiations, of course, both sides change. Both sides find out how the other side works, thinks, discusses, how future solution could work like. So I don't think it's a waste of time. But of course, the outcome is catastrophic. The way Erdogan ended the negotiations and then how the military conflict developed again is, of course, a catastrophic result. That's why I'm arguing to return to negotiations as soon as possible and lead them to a successful conclusion. On the theoretical influences on the Kurdish movement, I can just drop a few names and we can talk outside later. There's a long literature list on this, but I think some of the main important influences theoretically are Bookchin, the libertarian socialist American writer, the Braudel and Wallerstein school of historic thought, the Annales school of French, and in parts Foucault and Hegel. I know that Negri is being read a lot probably, but I don't think he's very influential in shaping the theoretical discourse there.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, we found it, we thought it was important to get as many contributions because yesterday it was a little, people weren't able to get as many contributions in, really. So I'm glad that we've been able to do that today, but I'm afraid that we have to wrap up now. So, Berivan, I'd like, put your hands together for the conference organisers because it's been...